Today's video is one that I really want to talk about, that I talk a lot about in my book, The Lost Love. Now, even though my older books, there are some ideas or concepts in there that I don't fully agree with anymore, or at least I question some of those ideas. Like, for example, is the Earth really a planet? Is it a globe? I don't know. I mean, what NASA does and what NASA says are a lot of it is lies. They're a government organization, or at least they get money from governments, grants and things. So I don't trust them, and they say that a lot of what they post, like the images of Earth, are manipulated or photoshopped. So that's, for example, one thing I don't agree on. Um, about planet. And planet, the word is a wandering star. So I don't know if this is a wandering star or not. And there's a lot of lies about, solar system and galaxies and so forth. And if there really is outer space, in fact, in front of me is outer space because it's out there, it's space out there. So it could be considered outer space. Today's topic is truth versus belief or opinion. And some people say, well, all these ideas in your book are your opinion. How do you really know they are truth? How do you really know they are, truth? What is truth? What is opinion or belief? And this is coming again from a lot of it from my own experience, my own opinions. But truth. Okay, now let's start at the very basics because I think this really requires in-depth, detailed discussion. And don't forget to post your discussions down below, and people will comment because more comments, the more traction the video gets. So don't forget that. And before you wake up, or actually I should say when you wake up, drink some water because it's good for you, and eat a lot of fruit. This is distilled water with some nutrients added back. So let's get into this. Drum roll. Okay. So beliefs we usually understand as our own views. Like, this is my belief. This is what I believe in. But doesn't mean that the belief is truth. But then again, when you say my belief, that could also in some way be a truth. Because we don't really know what's really truth or what's really not truth. We really don't know. The only thing that we do know is that truth comes from the heart, okay? But once the heart or once our bodies are rid of the indoctrination, so we're indoctrinated since birth to view and to see things in the way that our culture wants us to view these ideas or these, whatever they are. For example, food. So we're taught to eat certain foods and we're indoctrinated by that. And we believe the truth is that we are supposed to be eating animal foods because of this and that and all kinds of justifications and excuses we give. But is that truth? Is that truth? Is science truth? Is what the environmentalists are saying, is that truth? So is religion truth? Because a lot of people say, well, I believe in 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 this God and I believe in that and I believe in that. But belief means that basically we're taught, actually in fact we never come we never come to our own beliefs unless we learn these beliefs, after a certain period. So, for example, after a certain age, we start thinking ourselves. So, for example, after the age of, let's say, 8, maybe 8, 9 years of age, maybe a little younger, we start critically thinking ourselves. We start trying to figure out this and that, and we start, forming our beliefs. And that's still a belief, though. We watch something, we might believe it. What whoever is telling us, if it's a video or if it's an article, whatever, whoever is telling us this information, whoever has this information is telling us this, and we may believe it or not, or half truth. We might believe some of it and not all of it. So belief basically, usually, especially when it comes to our food, the clothes that we wear, religions, etc., they're all not our own beliefs. We've been indoctrinated, and this is hard for some people to understand, to really grasp. We've been indoctrinated since almost since birth, maybe a year or two later. We've been indoctrinated. Once we kind of understand and we go to church and all these things, we become indoctrinated by these thoughts. Now a lot of times we retain these thoughts and retain these beliefs for years and decades to come, but sometimes people break out of it. So they shed some of the armor that is around them, or some of the blinders. Instead of having the blinders like this, we have the blinders like this now, so that we still have blinders on, but it's a little bit open, so we can see a little bit more. So belief is ultimately something that we succumb to when we're young. We are indoctrinated. We don't come to we don't come to our own knowledge or our own comprehension of, for example, food. So, for example, we don't. It's not in our best interest, first of all, and secondly, we do not come to the decision freely, because we're all taught as young children what to eat, what to wear, what language to learn, what to believe in, like religions and so forth. So we don't freely choose what to eat because we're too young, of course. We don't have the opportunities or chance to make our own decisions because our families and our parents make them for us. So in fact, like for example, most of us were, I'm not saying all of us, but a lot of us were born in a hospital. We had no choice in that. If I had a choice and I had my own way of, thinking and everything, I would tell my mom, please do not, you know, give birth in a hospital. But then again, I probably even wouldn't understand these concepts that I understand now, because now I can think on my own. I can do things. I can, form my own opinions and beliefs and truths and so forth. So, as a baby, I don't have that knowledge. I don't have that capability to speak and to do all these things that adults usually do. And so we're not freely given the choice. So we are indoctrinated. We're told what to do. And it is an indoctrination because everyone is doing it. Everyone is saying, okay, do this. It's part of our culture. And not necessarily what is part of our culture and what everybody's doing is the right thing to do, is the moral thing to do. And so truth, when we start to become open to ideas, when we start to really embrace spirituality, more of it, because people are in some way spiritual. Spirituality just means that we understand things that we cannot see, okay? Because these things like spirit, souls, they're not necessarily religious, but they take more than just the eye. Like you cannot see these things. You cannot see air, but we know air exists. Okay, so we know that that is, that's there, or something is there. It's some matter out there, in front of us or all around us. So once we have a somewhat open mind and open heart, and we start understanding that what we were taught as infants and as children in school, through our parents, through our families, through our culture, is not necessarily truth. Okay, because basically truth comes from the heart. Okay, truth comes from the heart, and also partially it works with the mind. The heart and the mind work together to create, to understand truth, to not create but reawaken the truth, because we all have truth within ourselves, but we lose it after we have truth when we're young, and then we just lose it once we hit a certain age, through our culture and our families and schools and so forth. So that being said, and don't forget there's a globe here, so we live on planet Earth. Science said so, NASA said so. So getting back to truth. So once we start to open our minds and hearts to just questioning everything that society has indoctrinated us with, just questioning everything, then we can start to, and once we become more spiritually minded, and meditate more and so forth, then we might start to reveal these truths. Now, how do we know they are truths, and how do we know they are actual truth? Well, truth is something that deep down know without anyone's influence, without cultural influence, without our parents' influences, without anyone's influences. So we're not taught this by society, because basically society teaches what they've learned through other people. So they're not really taking in their own information from their minds and hearts. They're really taking in information from either the textbooks, which are either government funded or government owned themselves, um, or through other teachers, through the parents, or through our society. So the only way to really know if something is truth is to seek it within ourselves, because all the answers are essentially within ourselves, and we can definitely come to these understandings and these truths when we meditate, when we are out in nature, for example, or interacting with naturally free roaming animals in nature. So these um, can essentially reawaken the truth that we initially had when we were young children, but we've lost. And so, truth, we will only know what is truth when we seek the answers within. Now, if somebody thinks, "Oh, that is not truth," how do you know that's truth? First of all, they have all this armor and all this blinders on that they cannot distinguish what's truth and what's not. Now, of course, there are times when I can't distinguish what is really truth and what is not, because I still kind of have blinders and armor on and everything. But every day I'm peeling it away. And even after almost 10 years of being vegan, and, about a decade and a half into meditation, still sometimes I question, and I still ponder things. So, I'm gonna drink now, because water is especially important in the mornings, especially. But don't forget to eat your fruit, and if you eat enough fruit, then you don't need much water. So, going back to this notion of truth, and how do we really know what truth is? How do we awaken? Well, it's hard, and I discussed this a little bit in my book, or a lot, I should say. in The Lost Love, as well as how to create the perfect vegan life. I talk a little bit about meditation and all this in my book. So really, it's about trying to reawaken that truth within us, and we'll understand what that truth is, and we don't need to explain the truth to anybody. We know what it is. It's it's there. Truth is truth. Like for example, you can say that this is a mouse, a computer mouse, and people say, no, no, that's just your belief. But it is a mouse. We all know this. Just like what I'm broadcasting to you on is a computer, and for a majority of people will say that this is a computer, or virtually everyone will say this is a computer. So those things are understandably inarguable, that this is a computer, that this is water, that this is a bottle. So those things are common sense. We know this. Once we become a certain age, we understand that this is a bottle, that this holds liquid, that this is a book or a booklet. And we, however, come to the truth, the inner truth, with much, uncertainty, because we just really don't know, especially when we are not that spiritual. We don't meditate. We're not, we're still indoctrinated, and we're still eating the same foods that we've been eating all our lives. And so we really don't know what truth is. And that's why people are so, uh, they basically, people are so resistant to any new information or new foods or a new culture, for example, and they can't handle truth. They can't handle reality. Realities is how people's food comes onto their plate, gets to their plate, the process of that, the animals, and the conditions and the cruelty and all these things that happen before the meal gets onto their plate. They just don't want to know about it, because that is reality, that is truth. And people can't handle that because they're still indoctrinated. They still possess all these things that they've learned. And now we have to unlearn. And that's why a lot of spiritual masters, they say that we have to not learn new things, but unlearn what we've learned. And that's true, because our culture teaches us one thing. And our culture is basically everything from teachers to mass media, to our parents, to families, to governments, to religions, and so forth. Every institution teaches us one thing, but doesn't mean that what they teach us is the right thing, is a moral thing, is the truth. And we start to believe these things because we are taught them from a very young age, and we're taught them over and over and over for years and decades. And then we believe that, oh, it is natural, normal, and necessary to be eating animal foods like dairy, eggs, meat, honey, etc. But is it really? And do we know the whole story behind where our food came and comes from? So the whole picture is what we don't see. We only see one little piece of the puzzle. We don't see the whole picture. Again, it's like a puzzle. We see maybe the box, or we see only one little piece of the puzzle, and we don't see the whole puzzle, because we can't. Our minds and our hearts are clouded, are foggy, are suppressed. that we hold the truth. Every and each person holds, and I believe not just people, but other beings, they hold the truth within themselves. They hold the truth. But we have to reawaken that truth from the years and decades of conditioning. And the only way to do this is to really just start to question everything that we've been taught. Question everything that we've been taught, unlearn the things that we've learned, do like a lot of meditation. At least a few minutes every day is beneficial to the mind and the heart. And so, truth again, once again, comes from within. Everyone possesses truth, but at a certain age, it has been hidden and suppressed. Just like the love that we all have within ourselves, the unconditional love for all creatures. We have that when we're born. We love animals. We want to interact with them. And we want to go out to nature. And we love nature. And we run through the leaves. And we hug trees. But when we get older, all that changes. All that changes. And so we have to reawaken that love. We have to reawaken the compassion. We have to reawaken the truth. And I think the more we start to love every and each creature, we start incorporating more and more creatures into our sphere of compassion. That's when we start understanding what real truth is. It's not science, and there some people say, well, what about real science? What about truth science? And there's no such thing, because science is part of this herding culture. Now, yes, some science may, further us in our ethics, further us in spirituality, further us in the vegan cause, but by no means is science. Science is basically just like religion. They go hand in hand because they're all a part of this herding culture. They're all a part of this idea that we're, able to dominate, see other beings as nothing but property and food. So we have to understand that science, religion, all forms of teaching are in fact part of this herding culture. And so that's why I myself rather listen to a vegan that has been somewhat, unlearned things somewhat, and they have their blinders off, or at least majority of their armor off. I'd rather listen to those people than someone who still is indoctrinated. Though those people may still have some good information to teach, their foundation, the ethical foundation, is not there. So their whole basis of things is still part of the herding, again, of the herding culture. So that's what we need to understand. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a pretty long video, and I know a lot of my videos are pretty lengthy, and I think that some of you will benefit from this, and if you don't, but if you got anything out of this video, give it a thumbs up, like it, please, and don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. And don't forget that the Earth is sphere because NASA says so, and they get $50 billion from the government each and every year. So they have the right to say that, and they have the right to indoctrinate you because they're part of the herding culture. So again, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to get my books online through Amazon. Please write a review and rating. I really would appreciate that. That's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.